Let's hit the high road. Let's hit the high road. It's the first touch, strong connection. It lays deep in your soul. Feel the kindness strongly coming.
Hi, it's Nancy Yearout, and welcome to Nancy's Psychic View on the high road to humanity. And I have a lovely lady here today. Ayu Saraswati is here today, and welcome to the high road.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me and providing the space to be here with you. And thank you for your work too. I really enjoy your podcast, your
Oh,
work,
cool.
and wait for your forthcoming book.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited too. We're going to talk about her new book, and it's called Scared. And it's a feminist journey through pain. And so we're going to talk about her story and what happened to her. And she's going to share that with us in a minute. Hey, listen, I want to let you guys know that I am going down to Florida March 16th and 17th. I'm going to be in Boca Deerfield. I'll be at the New Life Expo, and I'm going to be, gosh, I'll be down there with my other book, Wake Up, the Universe is Speaking to You. And I'm going to show you both versions because this is the original and this is the one that's just come out. So it's been relaunched. So you can find it on Amazon. You'll see this one at Barnes and Noble. So don't get confused. It's the same book, but it's been relaunched. So I'll be down there. I'll be talking about the angels. I'm going to do an angel connection. It's not going to be a workshop, but I'll do a speech and help everybody get connected with the angelic realm. Also, my new book is in the works, and I was just telling Ayu about it. I'm so excited. I get to pick out the cover today, and it is a guide to angel communication using spiritual law. So you guys, pretty soon we're going to do pre-solds on that one. It's coming out. I'm very excited about it. So I wanted to talk about it. But let's talk about this lovely lady who's here. You know, she's a distinguished author. She is a professor. She's an expert in women, gender, and sexuality studies. She holds a PhD from the University of Maryland, College Park, and she's received acclaim for her previous works, including Pain Generation, Social Media, Feminist Activism. We're going to have to ask her about all this, and the Neoliberal Selfie, and Seeing Beauty, Sensing Race, and Transnational Indonesia. And you're from Indonesia. Tell us your story. You were born and raised in Indonesia, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and
Okay.
raised in Jakarta, in Indonesia, its capital city.
Okay.
And I did my undergrad there in political science. And then I wanted to get a master's degree. And so I went to Chicago to get my master's degree there, my first master's degree. And then I went to University of Maryland for my second master's degree and then my PhD from University of Maryland College Park.
Okay. So you came to the United States to go to school.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Now, was that what a culture shock that must have been for you? Because your story, tell us your story. You grew up, your father was kind of, talk about this. I mean, this is why you wrote this book. So you want to give us a little background, tell the audience what happened to you and why you got to this point, really.
Yeah, so I grew up in a culture, Javanese culture in Java. Everybody probably have heard of Java coffee, so you're probably familiar
Okay.
with. So I grew up in Jakarta, is in the island of Java, and so, but both of my parents came from Java, so like Javanese culture, where it is patriarchal, and so you see the father being the central figure in the family.
Mhm.
He, tells you the kind of person you should be with, and and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, though, he also wants all of us to pursue education. So it's one of those kind of contradictions, and that's why in the book I tried to also portray him as both, or like not just both, but this multitude of person, of traits, right? On one side, on one hand, he likes to help people. On the other hand, it's like, what about us, your family, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
In other words, I kind of, so when I grew up, and I have a younger brother, and it's both my mom and my dad, and it's not just them, right? Again, it's culture, so it's larger than them. I noticed that when it comes to my brother, he could eat anything he wants. Nobody tells him that, oh, you should stay petite, you should stay
Yeah.
skinny,
Yeah.
right? And also he could go out whatever, night, whatever time, doesn't have to come home, and I have to come home at, at a certain time. Um, and so I noticed that kind of like differences, and I kind of like rebelled a little bit. Well,
Yeah.
rebelled pretty much.
Yeah.
But then when I went to college, I majoring in political science, but I started taking sociology, classes, and learned this thing called gender. And so when I learned that, and the socialization of gender, how we learn, and I felt, wow, this is my life. And
Mhm.
so since then, that I've been sort of very committed in learning more about feminism, and then ended up getting my second master in women's studies, and then my PhD in women's studies, because I really wanted to change the culture. And what drove my first book was because I grew up, I love, being outside. My mom always told me like I'm that kind of girl who like climb a tree, and then
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
fall off a tree, and had my skin was dark.
Yeah.
And, again, in Indonesia, having dark skin color, you're never considered pretty. And so that's why my first book was about seeing beauty, sensing race
Mm.
in transnational Indonesia. So that kind of like about that first book. But for this book, um, at the time, I was already living here in Hawaii in the United States, already a professor. But something was just like, not there. It was just like constantly my personal relationship, my romantic relationship was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then my professional, it was like, it was, you know, good, but yet there's something missing, right?
Right.
The political situation at the time too was what is happening with this country, and right now too with the world, right? So I really needed to get away from Hawaii. I did not set out to travel to 20 countries in 1 year,
I
which I
know. I'm like, dude, you are looking, you say traveling provides us with a different ecology that provokes our body to shift, which in turn may allow us to process, live with, and carry pain differently. Well, you see the world differently when you travel, don't you?
absolutely, I agree. Yeah,
Yes, I always feel completely different when I come back from a trip because
absolutely.
you see, is that what happened? Well, why 20 countries? Tell the audience. I have to know this.
Yeah. And so in the beginning, I knew I had to go to a workshop. And so I went there. It was in Bali, of all
Okay.
places, in Indonesia. So I knew like the first country I wanted to go, I had that first country. But
Okay.
then after that, I was like, I don't know. So what I did, I used back then there was only Sky Scanner. Again, this travel happened in 2017, 2018, prior to
Oh, prior
pandemic.
to COVID. Okay.
And so the app allows you to put, let's say, Bali, or Jakarta or Honolulu, and then you can choose everywhere, or write down like everywhere as your destination. And then Skyscanner at the time would then list countries and specific cities within that would be the cheapest to travel to.
Oh, wow.
And so that was how I kind of like ended up. Obviously, there were places where I needed to go because I had workshop, I had writing residency. I also wanted to visit my family. They live all over the world. I knew I wanted to visit my uncle in Australia, in Sydney, because he was kind of like a father figure to me.
Yeah.
Um, Brother, my sister, and I have like all this family. So there were places where I kind of like know where I wanted to go. But for the rest of them, it was literally just Skyscanner. And then once I figured out, oh, I want to go to that city, and then I go to either booking.com or Airbnb and see
Yeah.
if I could afford finding a place there.
How
So that
cool.
was mostly a, what do you call it? A chance, right? Kind of traveling where you really just open it up to the universe and just, here I come, and see where life takes me.
It was freeing to you, I feel. It must have been freeing to you. Like you needed to look at different places and see how the culture was. Yeah. But
It was
I want to say something really quickly to you, just so you know this. I grew up with a mom and dad. My dad was wonderful, but my parents were strict and we couldn't go out, like that either. And yeah, you're right. It's the same way, people want you to be thin and they want you to be, look your best. My mom was always big on that kind of stuff. She would say, don't go out of the house unless you have your lipstick on. I mean, yeah, and yes, I think in all cultures, I think this is what I believe, and this is just my feeling as you were talking about this. I think in all cultures they worry about the women more because of pregnancy.
Mm.
I think that is one of the reasons why they don't, while women have been treated a little differently. What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I think that comes from the assumption that all women are heterosexual,
True.
um, and that is not always the case, obviously. And the other thing too is, why is there the emphasis on women, right? Because again, if it were a heterosexual pregnancy, right, then there's got to be like another person involved, or
Right.
right. And so the question has always been, why is there the emphasis? Why is it only then become women's or girls' responsibility about
Mhm.
pregnancy?
Right.
Because I think there are ways to think about like this, if this is not just about that, and obviously in this day and age, if that had been the case, let's say prior to 1960s, before birth control pills exist, right? But these days, I see the younger generations are very savvy, right? And
Mhm.
with easier access, although I don't know how easy it's going to be, with the politics and everything. I do not want to go there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
go back to what you were saying. Here's that's really the disconnect is when men have never taken the responsibility. Let's just go back to that real quickly, because as you say that, it just makes total sense. I mean, how far back does it go that men have not taken responsibility for a pregnancy? I mean, that's been going on for, I don't know, you're the expert on that one. Have you researched this? I mean, what are your findings on something like
Yeah,
that?
I've done research on that as you read all the titles of my book. The first one
Yeah,
is I mentioned about the skin color, and the second is about social media, and this one is really about travel and kind of like a mix with memoir.
right.
So I have not done any research on that, right?
But
But
it's
I
a
think
social thing, really. It's a social thing.
and even like the varieties, right, of birth control available for men, right? For women, we get the IUD, we get all of these, sort of, the pills and everything. But what about men? Like, what are, if they do want to take responsibility, right?
Right.
What are the pills that are available?
Right.
There has been, talks or research done, things in the making for birth control for men, but we don't really see it out there yet. So we also
True.
need to question, what about the research,
Mm.
right? So that um, men can also have all of these birth control, right? And we have condoms, and I know that there's always this conversation about
Well, there's vasectomies, of course, but here's
uh,
the thing. As you're speaking again, I'm thinking, okay, you're right. Women have always had to take something, put something into our body, which I don't like to put anything in my body unless I absolutely have to. And so I agree with you. I mean, we've taken the pill. Most girls, well, of course, I'm going to age myself, but 16 years old, 17 years old, you get on the pill. Or I have daughters. Of course, that's what you do. That's what you did. You're right. There are more things like that after um, pill and all these other different things. But what about men? They're not, I mean, there's no pill, is there?
yeah, exactly, right. And so I think we also, and so in other words, there are like so many things that we can do better so that men can
Yeah,
also step up and also be part of the conversation.
yeah,
Um, and because there are men who do, right? And there because the thing is, like, I don't believe in portraying men as the evil, because I do
right.
think women also benefit from patriarchy, right? The closer women get to patriarchy or supporting it, the better their position is in society, their status, and all that stuff. So no, it's not about
Hmm.
just the individuals. It's about the culture. It's about the system. So that's what I want to kind of look at, not only the person. And that's
Yeah.
how I talk about my father, as you ask too, is about his infidelity and all of that. And he really believes that he's helping this women, that he helps
What
finance,
about your mom? Like, what about your mom?
exactly
I
right.
mean,
Well, yeah, the reason I don't really talk a lot about my mom, well, first of all, my dad actually told me all these stories about his later on, obviously not when I was young, later on, because he wanted me to write a book about him and all of his
oh,
so
how egotistical. Oh my goodness.
actually, he wanted the book to be about, I want to show that it's not just men. Women also have the sexual desires. So it was very interesting. That's why he's a really interesting character. He's not at all like that kind of patriarchal, like, I want the world to know how rephrase that. Like in terms of like how many women I've slept with and stuff like that. So it's not that at all, but it's him wanting to change the conversation that also celebrates women's sexuality. So that was very interesting. But obviously, you know, I get to be the one telling the story, right? And so if he wants to write the
He can
story,
write a book. He can write his own book. You know what? I want to talk to you. What I really feel, and I interview a lot of people on the show, and I've read a lot of books, but my feeling is, and intuitively too, we are at a time, we are in the age of Aquarius, and this is the time where men and women should be equal. And you were talking about how some women, go with it. But here's what I think. I'll just give you my opinion. I think that everybody should do for themselves. And if you want to have a relationship with someone, fine, but you can't expect someone to take care of you. I think we should all be responsible for ourselves. And I think a lot of times women have looked to men to take care of them so that maybe they didn't have to work or they didn't have to. I mean, what I'm saying? Now women are like, no, I'll do it myself. Because I think women have learned that in order to be independent, you can't rely on somebody else. You have to do it yourself. And there is a sense of accomplishment, a sense of self. There is a lot to be said for women being their own, I've always been the breadwinner in my family, I grew up with a mom and dad, which is wonderful, but I wasn't that fortunate. I was a single mom. So I was the breadwinner. I had to be the mom and the dad. So I know what it's like. I've lived both sides of the coin. I've been married and had someone take care of me, and I hated it because I felt like I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I felt like I had to ask the other person, or do you know what I mean? And if I wasn't bringing in the money, when you're not bringing in the income, you feel like you have to go along. When you're bringing in your own income, you don't have to go along. You do what you want. Do you know what I'm saying to you?
absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I think that the notion of women's equality to men, we have to interrogate that a little bit, because which men are we wanting to be equal to? Are we wanting to be equal to men who are poor, who are of like working class? Are
Yeah.
we wanting
This is
to be
about love. It's got to be
right?
about love. It can't be
Right.
about money. We got to get the money part out of it. We got to just bring in
Exactly.
the
So
love, man.
yeah, so I think there is all of these sort of dimensions of that. And then we talk about race. Do we want to be equal to Asian men? Do we want it to be equal to
And
Black
we got to
men?
get away from that too. We cannot look at people. I'm sorry,
Exactly.
but you're talking to somebody. I don't see color. When I
Yeah.
see a person, I don't see color. I see a soul. And
Yeah.
that's where we have to get. And that's where the problem is with our society. We judge. We judge color. We judge how people look. We judge, their education instead of, wow, what a nice soul they are. What a kind person they are. Do you know what I'm saying? I just feel like it doesn't matter what color you are at all.
Yeah. And I
I-
think my point was just sort of about, when we talked about women being equal to men, we all
Right?
ask equal to which men, right? And so which men are we trying to be equal to? Like
All
that's the
men.
yeah,
I mean, women
exactly.
and men should be equal. Yes,
So
yes.
like which men? Because there is no such thing as one man, is what I'm saying. There is no one idea of like this is the man that we want to be equal to. What does that men look like, right? So like that's the first thing. And so the second thing too is that I believe in taking care of each other as a collective, right? And so
Right.
it's not
Yes.
just like you
Yes.
said,
Yes.
just I'm alone or just this other person alone. So how can we take better care of ourselves as a collective? And I think this is what this book is about. Um, in some ways, it's about pain, but pain not just at a personal level, but pain at a social, structural, and political level. And that's what I mean by I want us to um, take care of each other and care for each other, right? So it's not just like one way, like you take care of me, right? But it's how then we as a collective really take care of each other.
Right.
And that's why in the last part of the book, I talk about, what programs and policies are there, and not just at the level of the government. And I do talk about in the book only at the level of the government, but also in terms of the personal relationship. And I use the word emotional contract, right? But what I mean is just kind of like the well-being in general that includes both, financial, the money, because we live in a society where we have to purchase things, right? To buy fruits, to buy, to pay for to going to the doctor, right? So I mean when I say emotional or well-being, that it encapsulates everything. And so what kinds of contract, emotional contract do we have with our partner? What kind of emotional contract do we have with our employer? Let's say, like, what are some of the things that they provide us with so that we can have access to this well-being, right? So that
Well,
everybody, like,
yeah,
can,
it's really about community. Yeah, and we need to take care
oh,
of each other. Exactly. And what's happened in our society is we don't take care of our own. We're
absolutely.
sending money to other countries. We're not taking care of our veterans, and we're not taking care of our elderly, and we're not taking care of the people who have mental illness right now. And so we really have to get to a point where I think I like what you say about, yeah, we need to bring more community. Like the communities have to come together. I don't think we can rely on the government. I think each community needs to come together and take care of their own. And I think that would make a big difference because if everybody could get, that's just my
Mhm.
opinion
Ab-
on this. Because I don't think the government has an answer, but I think the people have to come together and say, hey, wait a minute, we care about each other. It's really about kindness and connecting and, just getting back to basics where people are decent to each other. We've lost a lot of that, don't you think? It's crazy.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this, again, I really wanted to talk about the pain that is happening,
Mhm.
that is created unnecessary, right?
Right. Yeah.
Unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Um, because sometimes we want to be number one in certain ways. We want to push people aside, but we need to instill, how can we really return to that, have this. And when I say emotional contract, it's not like, one, two, three, although it could be like that, especially if it's a workplace, right? These are some of the things that I will provide for you because I worked for your company, because I try to improve, the condition for your company for whatever, then, it's kind of like, and how do you then take care of me, right? And so it's that kind of, community in whatever way it is being defined, whether it is just within your neighborhood first, or again,
Mhm.
personal, your family, and then your neighborhood, and then your city, and then it's get bigger and bigger, bigger into the whole nation, and then the whole world, right? So like, how do we create a society? How do we create a condition where we can um, I don't want to say minimize pain, because in my book I actually said pain is kind of like our life companion. And actually that is the premise of the book, is that pain is our most faithful company in some ways.
I
It will
don't
be
think we have to be, but why do you think that we have to be in pain? I mean, or carry the pain with us? What do you feel about releasing that pain? How do you feel about that? So we don't carry it with us. What do you think?
I think it's a shift in thinking, because
Yeah.
for me, I think when we think of pain as our sort of like life companion, that we know will come, at a certain point in different form. Sometimes it could be financial pain. Sometimes it could be relationship pain. Sometimes it could be work pain. Sometimes it could be like bodily, physical pain, in whatever way. But the thing is, like when we don't see, because we want to push pain when we see it as this like, oh, like something we
Yeah.
don't, right? But my sort of proposal is like, if we see this pain as something that would allow us to see other things differently,
Right.
right?
Mm.
Um, then what is it really telling us, right? When pain comes, okay, let's say when pain comes in terms of emotional pain that's related to relationship, like
Right. We have a choice though. Here's what I think. This is what I feel about this. So when we all have stuff happen to us, yes, absolutely. But I think it's how we handle it. And I
Mhm,
think the pain, and I think people, this is my opinion on this one, because I've gone through stuff just like everybody. But I think that we don't allow ourselves, and maybe our own community doesn't allow ourselves to work through that pain. Do you know what I'm
mhm.
saying? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
people are expected to be, oh, well, you get over it. You hear people say stuff like that. But we need to work through those emotions in order to release them, to be free of the pain. What do you think?
That is exactly what this book is about. I think the word you said, how we handle it, is
Yeah.
the word that I use, how we carry it, that matters. And I
Okay.
actually talk about it. So I hope that we can live with pain differently in a way that is more life-sustaining, humane, and feminist or social justice oriented, right? So like what you're saying is like how we handle it. And so what I'm saying is like, how can we carry pain in a more in a way that is more enchanting? Because I talk about
Comfort,
feminine.
well, yeah, and we're not very comforting when it
Yeah.
comes to somebody's pain. We're like we don't want to deal with it. That's what I feel like. You
Yeah.
know,
And the
we don't want to
chapter
deal with our own, let alone somebody else's, you know?
I think chapter 4 of my book exactly addresses what you're saying. How
Yeah.
can we work with our body, right, to process pain? How do we like not work just with the language? Because the language, we talked about perception and all that in chapter 3, but chapter 4 is really returning to the body,
Mm.
because the body knows, the body's an intelligent system. How then we get to it and not bury it, but instead
Right,
work or
right,
do these techniques. And
right.
again, in all chapters of my book, I say this is just one example based on my travel, based on my experience. This is how I do it. It is not in any way how you should do it. This is not a how-to book. This is how do you do it? Kind of like an
Right.
invitation for
Yeah.
you. How do you handle your pain? Or for me, like the word that I use is just carry. And I think, it's just kind of like different
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
because, how do we sort of like carry pain in a way with the body and work with the body, but without the story, so that we can actually resurface all of these emotions that
Mm,
I buried, that I myself have buried. And
mm.
sometimes in the moment, I kind of like have to numb,
Yeah.
like don't cry, right? But then like, how do we actually, you know, resurface that and transform that, so that, like you said, not just dismiss it, not just forget about it,
Well,
but
yeah.
actually, yeah.
Because I feel like when you don't work on it, and that's why it's really important that people go inside. Really good book for this time, because people have to go within. Each of us has to go within and work on ourselves. And it's not easy and it's hard. And we don't want to remember certain things. But when we do, it's almost like we look at it differently, like you're saying. I liked how you traveled, because I agree with you. When you go to different places, it changes your mindset. And this is really about changing your mindset in order to release those emotions, is what I think. Yes,
Absolutely. And I think because you are open-minded, that traveling helps you change,
it does.
because a lot of the time people travel, but they keep but maybe I shouldn't use like, the word closed-minded because people have preferences and whatever, right? But
Mhm.
when they travel, they want to live the way that they do back home. They want to eat whatever that they eat back home. So nothing really changes, right?
I see what you're
When
saying.
it is when if that is how you travel, then probably travel is not going to help you see things differently.
But if you're
And
adventurous, then it's the way to go.
just open-minded, like what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Sort of
yeah,
like willingness
right.
to see what's out there,
Yeah.
willingness to try. I tried food that I didn't like. I tried food that, oh my, it smells differently that I don't know. Like, but I tried it and I didn't like it, and that's okay, right?
Yeah,
But I want to try other ones that also I was not familiar to. Oh, I like that one, right? Just
that's
because I
cool.
didn't like this one doesn't mean that I don't like these other new things, right? But as long as we are open
You're
to,
allowing, you're allowing.
I love that word.
You're
I think
allowing the universe to bring you whatever the universe is going to bring you. That's what you're doing. I like that.
I love that word allow because
Oh,
because to me allow has that feeling of flowing, right? This sort of allowing the body. And I think in one of my chapters I talk about how I was traveling in Qatar in this old town in an old city where you have to walk places. And I just allow my body to take me where it wants to go because you just kind of walk, right?
mhm.
And I would just walk to the left. I would just walk to the right. Oh, there's something over there. And I would just allow my body to take me places and allow my body to tell me, I want to eat that today. I want to eat that right now, and the kind of, healing that is happening when I actually listen to my body. I
Mhm.
was told a lot, and I tell people this too, just listen to your body,
Right,
listen to
exactly.
your body.
Absolutely.
If we have never really listened or practice, right, to listen to our body, then what is it telling? Like I ask my body, but it's not telling me, right?
Well, and I always say, and I do listen to my body, but it's not everybody is that in tune, but your body doesn't lie.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's why it's so important to listen to your body. And you're
Absolutely.
right on. You're absolutely right on. Like if you're craving something, it's because your body is craving it.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like when you were talking about, oh, I want that. My body wants this. My body wants that. And that's been something I think, and it's hard for a lot of people. It's taken me a while. Type A personalities, go, 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 work, work, work. I actually have to really think about, okay, what am I going to do for myself today? Because I'm always wanting to do for others or wanting to, and it's hard. You have to switch and I actually have to think about it. What do I want to do? What's my balance? Because you have to be in balance. There's got to
Mhm.
be that balance, because your body and I want to go, 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 and my body needs rest. I'm just using myself as an example because I know I've been going through this lately. And it's hard because sometimes you don't want to rest, but your body needs it. And so did you find that on your travels? I just wonder about that.
Yeah. So because this travel, I really wanted to make sure that I get that rest because I was feeling really burned out at the time with
Yeah,
all aspects of my life.
yeah.
So um, because of that, I allowed a lot of time to simply rest and be. And there were times when I went to the retreat, meditation retreat, or women's only retreat, and things like that, where you kind of have to do what the leader tell you what to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was helpful, and I wrote about it in the book, obviously. But a lot of the time, I find that when I can just let my body tell me what is it that I want to do right now? And sometimes when I work and my body's telling me, you really need to just walk around the neighborhood, just walk, 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 walk.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, like you said, we don't listen,
I
right?
know.
I don't have the lies, but we lie to ourselves. We lie to our body.
Oh,
And so,
I'm okay. I can do it. Yeah, I know. I
yeah,
hear you. Hey, hold up your book. You hold
thank
up your book so people can see it. This is what it looks like, you guys. It's called Scared. It's a feminist journey through pain. It's really a cool book. What has been the reaction? Has it been out long enough? I don't know the date that it came out.
So what I really love hearing is that, people come to me and said, I read it in one sitting. I've never read, because in some ways this is academic book. It is published by academic press. And so some of them said, I've never read academic book from cover to cover because of
Ah,
using the dry language or something like that. So
right.
that a very warm inside. Different people actually who didn't know each other have told me that this book is kind of Eat, Pray, Love, but with a anti-colonial sort of feminist perspective to it.
I like that.
Yeah, and so it's very interesting because I love Eat, Pray, Love, right? And so I really admire, and that book really inspired me to travel. So I really, really love that book, and Elizabeth Gilbert as a writer, love her. So to
Yeah.
to have my book kind of being described as such, with just because, again, I'm a feminist scholar, I study feminism, and therefore, and I
Yeah.
study colonial and post-colonial, and that's why it has that kind of perspective, was quite an honor in some ways, and
Right.
to be able to still be true to myself, because again of that kind of critical lens, because I'm a scholar, and I bring theory into this book. And so what I kind of want this book is kind of like bringing the personal narrative or the emotion into academia, which again in
There you
academics
go.
it's like no personal story, no emotion,
Ah,
no nothing, right?
right.
At the same time, I want to bring the theory to the general public,
Yeah.
because a lot of the time people say, the general readers don't want this. And I do have, readers who don't like it because it's theoretical, too theoretical for them. And it's okay. But in the book, I say you can still follow the book, even if you just kind of tune out all those theoretical things and to just go back to the stories and then skip those theory if you don't like it. That's okay. But the thing is, like, I try to explain every big concept that I use,
Mm,
because I trust that the readers are smart, they
mm,
can read it, and
mm.
they're willing to do the work, which is reading.
Yes.
um and I think, and if they're not ready now, hopefully at some point it will be, and that is my hope. And some of the things that people have told me that really melt my heart was that um she said, like, this book allows her and her family member to talk about deep, painful things,
Mm.
that if this book hadn't been, like, visible in that space of the home, that they wouldn't even talk about those painful things. So
It opened
then
it up for a conversation.
it becomes the space, right?
Right.
Like, it provides the space, opens up a space for that conversation about their pain. Because
Mm,
again, this book was never about me. I just use experiences from my own travel as one example, but
mm,
really I want the readers to take on their own journey. Like, what is it for them that would allow them to live with pain differently,
mm.
right? It's
I
like
like
I said,
that.
in a way that is more empowering, right? Because when we are in pain, at least for me, when I'm in pain, I feel like I'm hopeless, I'm depressed, I'm sad, right? And so how can we bring enchantment? Like I talk about in fact chapter 5, like how can we bring those moments, even if the rest of the day was really painful, everything happening, but
Yeah, how
even
can
if
we bring in the good, the good? Yeah, and this
yeah,
would be a good book for people who are going through grief. We were
absolutely.
talking about that before this show. And is that what are you working on right now?
That is the book I'm currently completing
What
right
I
now.
thought.
Interviewed people and asked them about what are some of the things that help them to live on with grief, right? And so I really want to learn and share, and for them to share their wisdom. So
Mm,
that is my book. And that book will be non-academic. It will be poems, it'll be stories, it'll be diaries, it'll be writing in the forms that the theory is kind of implicit, but not at all mentioned, because
mm.
this was kind of like a different way I want to reach the general audience out there
Yeah, I
who
think
doesn't.
it'll be good. I think it'll be really good. I do. We got to get out of here for today. I'm really glad you came on the show. Hold up your book one more time. It's called Scared, you guys. It's by Elle, and her name is Ayu, and her last name is just spell Sarah Swati, Swati. So Saraswati, if you want to find her, you guys. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun. I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you guys, we're getting out of here for today. I hope everybody has a fabulous week, and God bless.
Hold your head high, the world is coming. Watch the colors lift your soul. Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road. Let's hit the high road. It's the first touch, strong connection.